Okay. Anyone, I mean, you can just tell me, or if you are open, if you don't know anything, I'm open for it. Okay, okay, fine, okay. So data mining, okay, fine. So you're already using R and SAS for the data mining? So anybody else? So Thomas mentioned that he is into the data mining and he is doing some market research, working with the market research agency. Okay, SPSS and the quantum. Okay, fine. So anybody else? Okay, fine. So I'm not getting much of expectations from you. So let me quickly start it off. Let me introduce myself before we start our journey. My name is Vivek and I have around 13 plus years of experience. I've been training. I'm totally into QA and I worked with the prestige organizations. I worked for the Microsoft also and I worked with a couple of different organizations in the past. Okay. I I am totally into data warehousing and business intelligence solutions from last 10 plus of years and my experience runs into 13 to 14 years of experience overall in the IT. I worked into multiple tools and predominantly I worked into the data warehousing tools like on the ETL tools and the reporting tools. Okay. Right now I'm training on the Hadoop from last 2.5 years and I as a part of Hadoop trainer and currently I'm working with an organization where I'm training the entire organization on the Hadoop skills. Okay. And my focus area is more on Hadoop testings. Okay. And what I have realized also over a period of time that Hadoop testing is not unique in itself. You need to have a development perspective of it on the Hadoop testing. Okay. As part of this course, we'll be predominantly focusing, let me share my screen too. As as I mentioned, as part of this course, we will be focusing more on the technical aspects of the Hadoop, okay? And we'll be focusing on how the different tools are integrated within the Hadoop and how the data movement happens within the cluster, okay? Just I'll have to pause for a couple of minutes. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. Are you all able to see my screen now? Okay, fine. So as I was mentioning, we'll be focusing on predominantly three core concepts. Okay, I will be focusing on the very first thing is about the ecosystem. Okay, we'll be talking about the Hadoop ecosystem in this course. Okay, very important because we need to understand how this different pieces what we are talking about and how does they fit into the entire Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, so Hadoop itself is not a single tool, it's a build. Most of you might have taken my course and you have seen we have talked about multiple tools into this ecosystem, right? And we will be talking about how the data inflow will happen into the Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, how you can capture the data from multiple systems. Okay, multiple, we'll call it as a multiple outside systems or the source systems, and how the data is moved. Okay, so there are n number of utilities in these areas that we'll be talking about. Okay, and how this utility work, not only we'll be talking about how and this utility works, how do you write certain queries and how do you configure this. Okay, and how do you implement those tools to move the data. Okay, being a tester or being a developer uh, in a Hadoop, you have to understand how do you move your data into the Hadoop. And most of us, if you are a background from a testing background, okay, you will see that the data movement is through a multiple tools, and that is where how do you create a test data into your Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, then we'll be talking about once the data comes over here, there are n number of tools, okay, that will do the massaging of the tool. Okay, what in a typical data warehousing terminology, it is called as a data cleaning activity, data scrubbing activity, data transformation, and so on and so forth. Right? And then finally, the data would be pushed into a multiple sources, multiple systems. Okay, and how do you visualize the data, right? So that is predominantly the reporting part into a data warehousing, or in a on a Hadoop ecosystem, you can say it's again a reporting which will connect to a different system, which will be a Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, and we will not dwell into the mining aspect because though not as part of this course, we have R. Okay, as I predominantly work with R for the data mining activity. So we do have a R, but that is not which I'm planning to cover because again I have some limitations over the what I could cover into a 30 hours of time. Okay, the entire session which runs over 30 hours of time, so we'll not be able to touch base upon the R. Okay, though we will try to see if that is the possibility. Okay, if there are many people who are interested into how do you analyze the data through R. Okay, the whatever the data is available on the Hadoop, we can see couple of we can if we go by the pace, we can see if we can cover R. Okay, though that is not part of the course curriculum. Okay, uh, anybody has any questions till now? So very important, guys, we understand whatever questions that you have at this period of time. Okay, I will pause for a couple of minutes, 1 or 2 minutes, so that you all can build upon some questions. Okay, and I was also expecting some more expectations about this course. Okay, as I have got from 1 or 2 people about the expectations. If I can get a more expectations from other people, I would definitely try to answer their questions. I have paused the recording right now. Okay. Uh, the Hadoop market is not evolved, and if you see, it is still evolving. And if you go to a couple of websites like Indeed Jobs and other sites, you can definitely see the trend, how the Hadoop is going to evolve over a period of 1 or 2 or 3 years. Okay, that is what I would say in terms of the market. Okay, and in terms of the jobs that will be evolving into the Hadoop. I am not sure any of you, or maybe a couple of you might have been working on the Hadoop, and those also I don't see that people in India itself are not much working on the Hadoop. Okay, there is still evolving, and even I am part of a very big organization, so where I can see very few people are working on this Hadoop. Okay, So this is the right time to pitch into and learn Hadoop and to be prepared as you see the market trends which I was talking about. It's basically going to increase over a period of 2 to 3 years. Okay, and it will mature by the time 2018 or 19. Okay, so that is what the not my prediction, but it is the prediction from the indeedjobs.com where you can see the job trends on the Hadoop. Okay, so that is the first part of whatever questions you have asked, Srinivas. The second part is how do I move into the Hadoop? Okay, so this is the part which I'm going to answer today. Okay, and you will see how do you move into. Okay, so we have the right set of since I have been working on Hadoop from last 2 years. Sorry guys. Okay, so the what I have designed this core is more oriented towards the how a person who is not having any exposure on any of the Hadoop technologies and the Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, I would be talking about more on the Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, so just remember this term Hadoop ecosystem. Okay. So people are not much aware of the Hadoop ecosystem. That is where I'm going to talk about different ecosystem, okay, or the different tools within the ecosystem and how this tool works, where it fits into the testing, how do you generate a test data, okay, how do you validate those data, how the data transformation happens, how the data cleaning happens, and finally how the reporting happens. Okay, and the third thing which what you will be needing to go into the Hadoop, okay, beside this course is there certain prerequisite which I have already covered as part of the course material, right? So let me quickly open my the course content. Okay, so if you see this, we have organized the course such that it covers all the prerequisites. Okay, some of the prerequisites are Java, Unix, okay, and the data warehousing concepts. So these are the prerequisite what you need as part of moving into the Hadoop. Okay. So when I say this is the prerequisite before you go into the Hadoop testing area, okay, all of this prerequisite is not that you should know in and out of it, right? So Java knowing in and out, no, it is not what you're expecting, what we are expecting, right? But yes, so Java is something which you need, okay, and there is a certain area where you need to work with the Java in the Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, not all of the area. Okay, if there are 10 plus tools which I've been talking about, not all of them will work on the Java. But if in case there are couple of tools, okay, within the ecosystem that will need a Java knowledge. Okay, similarly you would need a SQL knowledge. Okay, for there we have a certain, so for all the different tools in the entire ecosystem you would need a different prerequisite. Okay, so that is where we have tried to cover Java, we have tried to cover Unix. Okay, and Unix is important, and data warehousing. Unix again, if you have to list certain things in a directory, you have to work on the Unix operating system, then how will you work? And you need to know a data warehousing concept, because sometimes when it comes uh, into a testing document or into a business requirement document, they'll be talking about the data cleaning, they'll be talking about data scraping. Those terminologies are very one who has come from a data warehousing background, he will be able to understand it much better. Okay, so I hope Srinivas I answered your query.
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
yeah. Okay, so another question from Rajan is completing this course how many years? Okay, so Rajan is asking, completing this course in full, how many years of relevant experience would this add to my profile? Okay. So Rajan, I would say like this, okay? I would not try to add a number of years into your profile, right? But I would definitely like to say I would make your career jump, okay, by 2 to 3 years, okay? I would be in the entire class, okay, what you will be learning, okay? You will be, okay. I'm put Srinivas you on mute because there was some disturbance. So Rajan, as I mentioned, once you go through the entire course, okay, the entire course curriculum which you are seeing on our website also, okay. If you see this, there are different areas, okay, and specifically on the Hadoop area, I'm trying to make your journey move much ahead of the other people who are not done through this course, okay. And depending upon the number of years, I would definitely not like to add anything on your profile. That is something which you have to take care. But we will be covering a lot of things into this. I would say in the ecosystem, if there are 10 or 12 of tools, we'll be covering around 6 to 7 of tools. So I'll be covering most of the Hadoop that is required, okay, to start your journey and to be a comfortable, and you can compete with people who are already working for 1 or 2 years or more than that, okay. Hadoop testing similar to application testing, okay. So there's another question before I come to your question. So Hadoop requires DB knowledge and data warehouse knowledge. So this is the question from the Vasant. um yes, Vasant, okay. So I'm not very sure from what is your background. But as we all know, database knowledge is all required, right? Even if you're working with a web application, you're working with any application, right? So until unless you are working with very on a handset or a mobile device, okay, in that case you will not need a DB knowledge, but in all the most of the cases you would need a DB knowledge, okay. So that is the minimum requirement from a Hadoop also, right? Because Hadoop, as we say, it's a data, it's a big data, and the Hadoop is a solution. Once we talk about big data and Hadoop, okay, so that is Hadoop is basically a solution for a big data problem, okay, that we'll be talking about in this session, okay. Is Hadoop testing similar to application testing? Okay. So Thomas, can you elaborate on the question what you have been asking? So if I would understand your question, it is something like this. You are saying what are the similarities and the differences in the Hadoop testing versus the application testing? That is your question? Okay. So as okay, fine. So see, if you try to see application testing and okay, Vasant will take your question in some time. So as I said, application testing, if you say I have to categorize into a couple of things, right? So when I write application testing, what all you are focusing on, right? You are focusing on functionality, right? Right, that is the one thing which you focus on. And apart from the functional validation, okay, your other focus area is like on the automation, right? And if the application performance is very crucial, then you have to focus on the performance, okay. If security is very area where you have to focus, then is security testing is required, all right. So in a sense, this all will remain the same from application testing and the Hadoop testing, right? You have to focus on everything, right? So you'll have this functional testing and everything, okay? But the only difference, okay, this is the similarity we are talking about. The difference would be how do you execute the different tasks into the functional testing and the automation testing, okay, or a performance testing or a security testing, right? So what are the differences is how do you execute the entire thing, okay? uh, you cannot run a performance test on application testing or and a performance test on Hadoop testing in a similar fashion, right? Because there are different tools and they are into a different ecosystem where different tools interact in a different ways. Different tools are supported on the Hadoop, okay. Different tools are supported for your any application performance security testing. If you say load runner, In a performance tool, will it work on a Hadoop? No, it won't. Okay. But yes, JMeter, yes, JMeter works in a application testing. It does work in a Hadoop testing also. And you need to have develop a different connectors, right? So that is where you have to see which tools and how do you execute those. Okay, are almost same like 70. Okay, so the next question is from Vasant. Hadoop is a tool like Appium, or is it like a Selenium WebDriver? Okay. So as I mentioned, Vasant, I don't call Hadoop as a tool. I am focusing on Hadoop as an ecosystem. Okay. So Hadoop as an ecosystem, and it is divided into multiple tools. Okay. So that is what we'll be talking about now in some time. Okay. And if you see our course content on the Hadoop testing, we have covered lot of tools that will work on the Hadoop ecosystem. Does that answer your question?
Is
Okay.
is Hadoop and MongoDB are same?
Okay. So another question came on Hadoop and MongoDB. See, Hadoop, as I said, is a ecosystem, right? We'll not talk about Hadoop as a tool. Okay. Hadoop is the ecosystem, very, very important when we're talking about Hadoop. Okay. Mongo is, yes, a tool or a database. Okay. It's a NoSQL database that sits on top of the Hadoop ecosystem. It can sit on top of a Hadoop ecosystem. Okay. So let me just quickly tell you something like this. So if this is my Hadoop ecosystem, okay, and there are multiple tools, right? So as I was talking about, SQOOP, FLUME, Kafka, okay, okay, and then you have certain processing tool like the storage tool is something HDFS and MapReduce, okay, and though you have a different processing engine which is now available, okay, Spark, and then you have multiple tools over available over here like HIVE PIG, okay. Okay. So these are the some of the tools which we are going to cover in. Okay. So MongoDB also can sit over here, right? So if you see MongoDB, okay, MongoDB, or for sake of any NoSQL database, okay, like Cassandra, okay, or HBase, okay, anything can sit on top of your Hadoop of distributed file system, which is nothing but your HDFS, okay. So they are not same. As you said, the Hadoop itself is built of multiple tools, and this tool can interact. MongoDB can store the information on HDFS file system. Does that answer your question, Vijay?
Yes, got it.
Okay. Okay. So Hadoop, Prakash has the question. Hadoop development and testing courses are almost same. Okay. So, Prakash, if you see here, okay, the tools has to be taught, okay, and how the tool works is very, very important, right? Before we go into the testing aspect, you need to understand the tool. So, even if you are a developer or a tester, you need to understand the tool, okay, and that is one thing which you need to know. That the once you understand how the tool works, okay, then your testing task and the development task is different, okay. So say for example, let's take an example of a MongoDB, right? If I'm pulling a data from HDFS to MongoDB, that is a development task, okay. But if I have to do a performance testing or a functional testing, I still need to pull in a data from HDFS and put it into my MongoDB, right? So that is a testing task, and the activity that I'll be doing as a tester, okay, will be pulling this data from HDFS and creating my test data, okay. Then I'll be running my performance test, okay. Then I'll be validating my performance test results, reporting, and so on and so forth. Okay? So the working of the tool becomes very important either you are from a developer or a tester background. So that is where you see there is some overlap, okay, but at the same time I would say the tasks are different, okay, and the testing tasks which are done, okay, that will be entirely different, okay, and the way we do those tasks is also different, right? So I have one more minute before I jump into the session, okay, so I'll take a last question from any one of you. Yeah, Vasanta Srini, you have raised your hand. Any one of you can ask your question. Spark, okay, fine. So one more question from Prakash is Spark is related to Java also. Okay, fine. So as I mentioned, Spark or MapReduce, these are the processing engine. Okay, okay. And if you see, this is the engine. Okay, so this engine has been developed to process your data, and you can write your code in Java. Okay, so you can write your code in Java. Okay, and you can write your code in Python. Okay, that will be helpful. Okay, so you can write your code in Java, Python, okay, and there is a language called Scala. Okay, so you can write in any language, okay, which this framework, so basically the framework and the these are called the processing engine framework, and that framework, if it supports any of the language, then you should be able to implement it or write your code and execute your code and execute your processing logic. Okay, does that answer your question, Prakash? Okay, so let's get quickly started. We have a good Q&A, and I'm very thankful for each one of you to have your doubts cleared. Okay, so let's get started on the course content. Okay, and what I'm planning to cover as part of this session. Okay, and what I'll not be covering, I'll also show you that. Okay. So if you see our entire course content over here, so we'll not be covering on Java, okay, we'll not be covering Unix, and we'll not be covering the data warehousing, okay. So these are self-paced videos which you have to go on your own, and you have to finish up any assignments which are part of this course content. Okay, so we'll be focusing on the entire course content on the Hadoop testing. Okay, though we'll be if there are certain needs to dwell on the concept of Java, or if there is a need to dwell on certain concepts of the Unix in any of this training sessions, we will try to cover that. I'll try to answer a couple of questions. I would try to add on to certain concepts which you have learned in the prerequisite videos. Okay, and we will also try to do most of this as part of the session, though there is certain assignments that will be there, completing the critical modules, and that would be a assignment which you have to do on your own to do certain hands-on and practice those sessions. Okay, and the very important thing I wanted to focus on this is, don't take this as a training session, but take this as a workshop sessions, right? I want each one of you to do a more of hands-on during the entire course content, as well as post the course content. Okay, and finally we'll be focusing on the project, where we'll be talking about one of the project. Okay, probably we'll try to finish up this project. Otherwise we'll try to take, if it is too big project, we'll try to take a smaller project and then try to finish it off. Okay, so just couple of more things over here. One thing, that course content, or if you all are aware, the course content is 30 hours. We will be giving you a VM, the virtual machine, where you can practice, and it is installed with Hadoop and all the tools required. Okay, you have everything set up on that cluster. Okay, whatever tools I'll be talking about, everything will be is already pre-installed on this virtual machine. Okay, and you can download the virtual machine from the link which we have given it to you. Okay, so you can practice your assignments, and I can give you once your assignment is finished, I will provide you a link where you can put up all your assignments. Okay, so we'll try to do a validation of the assignments and try to support you, most of the assignments I would think you should be able to do on your own, but in case if you need some assistance on any of the assignment, I would provide you email ID, okay, which where you can drop in a mail, or you can directly go to our forums and post up the post up your questions. We do have the forums open over here. Let me check where is it. Yeah, so you can go to the forum, and then you can click on the forum and then post up your questions. Okay, and if you want to drop a mail directly to for our support, I will. This is my this is the email ID you should be sending all your queries. I have just sent it to everyone. Okay, on the chat box. Okay. Okay. So the very important things are, as I mentioned, these are the three things which you have to focus on when you are going to the course. That assignment has to be finished. You have to finish everything on the virtual machine. Okay, and just drop in a mail whenever you have a issue. So let's get started what I wanted to cover as part of this session. Okay, so in this session I'm going to talk about very briefly about the big data and the Hadoop. Okay, so what is Hadoop and what is big data? Can any one of you tell me what is the difference between big data and Hadoop?
Big data is the huge amount of data, but Hadoop is the framework or technology to manage that huge amount of data.
Okay, perfect, Prakash. Right. So yeah, this is like very important thing to understand, because most of the people tell big data and Hadoop, and they have the conceptual understanding is not very clear for some of the people. To understand big data and Hadoop, okay, it's very important to understand the characteristics of a big data when we talk about a big data. Okay, this is the data itself has certain characteristics. Okay, and this characteristics we say as a three V's. Okay, so what are those three V's? One is definitely the volume, what Prakash has said. Okay, anybody else? What are the two different V's over here?
Another is the velocity.
Okay, perfect. Okay. What is the last V? Anybody? Okay, fine. So I got an answer of all the V. Okay. So very important to understand what are those three V's. As we all know now that the characteristics is volume, velocity, and the variety. Okay. And how does Hadoop solve this problem, right? So what is the problem space what we are talking about, right? So what were the different problems which came because of this? If the data is coming and data is having this characteristics, right? So what were the typical problems and how Hadoop was able to solve that problem, right? Why the traditional technologies were not able to solve a problem, right? So this and how Hadoop solves this problem, right? So two things we need to consider: why and how, right? Okay. And we have to also understand the different tools or what were the different pre-existing solutions that were available and that were tried out when the data moved into a big data space. Okay. Before I go into a big data space, how many of you have worked with a data warehouse? Or how many of you have worked with a huge amount of a data? Okay, okay, fine. So I'm seeing couple of yes, okay, couple of people have worked on data warehouse. Okay, okay, right. So why I was asking about whether you have worked on data warehouse or not, okay? Because being a data warehouse, you people would understand, or if you're not from a data warehouse, it's important to first understand the data, okay, before we go into and understand about the big data, right? Okay. So if you take any application, take any application, right? So any online application or any OLTP application first. Okay, we'll talk about any OLTP application in sales and retail. Okay, what is the first application that comes to your mind? Okay, for me the Flipkart comes as the first application. Okay, so Flipkart retail application comes first to my mind. And why I'm talking about a retail application? In a retail application, it's very easier to understand because all of you might have done your transaction on a retail application. Everyone might have bought either certain order certain products from a Flipkart, okay? Might have cancelled certain products. You have your customer information and so on and so forth, right? So whenever you log on or whenever you go into a Flipkart, right? So you have you basically would need to understand, you have to create a profile, right? So that is something which is the very first part when the customer goes, okay, and creates a profile, okay, and then it starts ordering something, right? So in a typical data warehouse or a database schema, will not come to the data warehouse schema. So the customer will go, okay, and customer will create his profile, and that will be stored as a data into the database, right? Similarly, the orders, he will order something and that will be as part of another table called as the orders, right? So these two tables, okay, and whatever the information that is stored as part of these two tables, okay, that is the data which is stored as, or a bare minimum data that is stored as part of the OLTP system, okay. And this data, if you see the number of customers over a period of time, okay, if they increase, okay, what will happen? Right now, if I say I have a single customer, okay, and after probably a year or two, I might have around a million customer, okay, I'll say 1 million customer, right? So one customer to 1 million customer, if it has increased, okay, what is the data growth that has happened? Okay, if you take it a simple profile information about a customer. Okay, he will have his first name. Okay, he will have his last name, will have his address. Okay, he will have his sex information, he will have his phone number. Okay, I'm just taking couple of this information, okay, about the profile information, though you need more information, but just let us just limit to this. Okay, and if I have to say how many bits of information it has. Okay, what is the data which we are talking about? So first name can be 8 to 10 characters. Okay, I can define into my data warehouse, or sorry, in a database, that it can be, the schema can be, it can be varchar of 10 or varchar of 20, right? So what does that mean? That means it will consume how many bytes of information that a varchar contains or a character contains? Anybody? From character to bytes? Okay, fine. So varchar, considering a 2 bytes for a single varchar, for a 20, when we are talking about 20, it's a 40 bytes. Okay, right? And similarly for last name, again you add onto it some bytes. Okay, and the address you add onto the bytes. Okay, I'll add a rough figure, and then again you have a couple of bytes for the sex and the phone number, right? So typically a single profile will generate around 100 bytes of data. Okay, that is a rough estimate which we are talking about. Okay, and if you multiply it by 1 million, okay, that would be around 100 million bytes of a data, where if the data has come to over here. Okay, and 100 million is how many gigabytes, or how many megabytes? Okay, so you need to divide this 100 million by 10 raised to power 9, and that is how you'll get your gigabytes of information, right? So just, so this is the conversation, just need to remember, right? And okay, so this is the conversation you need to remember. And if you have to convert this 100 million bytes, you will you will effectively come to 1 GB of a data. Okay, and that is the amount of data what we are talking about when we are talking about only the profile information into the customer table. We are not talking about any other table. Okay, now if you consider the thousands of table that will be available into your retail application, right? You might have a table called products. Okay, you might have a table called product category. Okay, you might have a table geography, right? So if you consider all those table and the data associated with all this table, okay, you would run into some thousands of gigabytes of a data. Okay, so typically it will run into 1 TB of a data. Okay, uh, it can be around 500 GB of a data, or it can be around 1 TBs of data that we are talking about. Okay, and this is again when I'm saying a Flipkart application that is very much constrained to a single geography, and that geography is India geography. Okay, now consider you have multiple applications. Okay, like this is the one application which is for our convenience, we'll say it generates around 500 gigabytes of data. Okay. Now consider they might have a different application for US, and they might have a different application for any other region. Okay, and all of them might be generating a different volume of a data. Okay, and that application cannot be a retail application. Say for example, they don't do a retail into US. They might just have a sales application, right? Or they just wanted to develop have an application where people can connect on the Flipkart as a and just provide the marketing part of it. So they might have a sales and marketing applications only in a US geography. Okay. Right, and that again will since this is a smaller application, it might not generate a 500 GBs of data, but it might just generate around 50 GBs of data, right? And these are the two separate applications. Okay, two separate OLTP application what we are talking about. Are you guys with me till now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so so right now I'm just focusing on the OLTP part, right? So why I asked couple of you that whether you guys have worked on the data warehouse or not. Okay, the reason is simple. Okay, let me just clean up this. Okay, let me take a blank screen. Okay, and so I have my OLTP application. Okay, and this OLTP application, as there are multiple OLTP application. Okay, right now we have considered we'll call it as a application 1. Okay, and we'll call it as a application 2. Sorry, right? And this application is have their own set of data, okay, which are a separate entity. Okay, this operates in US and this operates in India. Okay, so data is not, if you see, this data is distributed, and there is data, we cannot integrate this data to for any of the analysis purpose. Okay, say for example, typical, if you have a marketing guy who is sitting in US, okay, and that guy has procured thousands of orders for you, okay, but you only get information into the another application that the order has been there, okay, but you really don't get that whether it's a marketing guy or not. Okay, you don't get a holistic view of the entire data. Okay, and when you're not getting a holistic view of entire data, that is where somewhere the data warehousing people come into the come into and then say we can integrate your data which is distributed, okay, which is distributed across two applications. Okay, this is application 1 and application 2, right? And then they will say I can integrate your data from both this application and give you a 360 view of a data where you could analyze your data based on any of the dimensions, okay, or any of the context area. Okay, I'll not come to the dimensions because some of you are not comfortable with the data warehousing concept. I'll say on the concepts, okay, or the contextual basis, right? So I basically sorry guys, I basically have to understand my data based on a certain context. Okay, so I would like to have an integrated view of a data. Okay, as well as I would like to do a certain data cleaning task, because sometimes I might be having records which are not good enough. Say for example, in the orders table I might have one record with a null value, so some filtering has to be done. That is a part of certain process which we call as a ETL process over here. Okay, and this ETL process will do certain data cleaning, and then finally it will load the data into your data warehouse, which is nothing but over here. Okay, and finally you would like to see your data. Okay, so data warehousing, why is important? Because when you are shifting from a data warehousing to a Hadoop, okay, So the data warehousing where you can store about terabytes of a data, you can again go to thousands of terabytes of data, right? But when the volume goes beyond, 1 second, guys. So when the volume goes beyond a certain numbers, okay, so the number I'll not say now, okay, maybe right now we have roughly 1 TB of a data, okay, or I'll say 700 gigs of data, okay. If you see the application which we are running nowadays, any application what you're talking about, maybe you consider an application like Twitter, Facebook, and not only the social website, you take the data generated from different IP systems, right? So electronic system which are now on a IP, they are generating their own set of data. That is nothing but Internet of Things what we are talking about, right? So now I could communicate, or I could interact with some, or I could watch my house somewhere sitting remotely through certain uh, device which I could fix it on my door, okay, on my entrance door, right? So there are Internet of Things that is going into the picture, and that is where the data generation is very huge, okay, and because of that the data is ranging into petabytes, okay. Just take a conversion of 1000 GB is equal to 1 TB, okay, and 1000 TB is equal to 1 petabyte, okay. So wherever the data ranges into something into petabytes, okay, that is where we focus our data, okay, and we call is as a big data, okay. So are you guys with me? So any data which is available in a OLTP system, maybe it would be roughly into a gigs, 100 to 500 gigs, okay. Beyond that, the OLTP system will not store the data. The reason is if you go beyond this, the performance of the system gets impacted, okay. So what you need to do, you need to start purging your data. Purging means deleting your data, okay. So you start deleting your data. So say for example I have a data orders from a customer which is as back as 5 years, okay, or as back as 3 years. I don't need the entire data, right, for 3 years orders, because I have already completed those orders. So what I will do, yeah, so this is one of the criteria. Yes, Thomas. So as I was mentioning, so if the data is in this range, we'll store it into a OLTP system. The data in a data warehouse roughly would be into terabytes of a data. It can go to 2 or 20 or 50 terabytes of a data, or it can go to thousands of terabytes of a data. But when it starts shifting, or maybe I'll write here 1 TB to 500 TB, right? So that is the rough range. Okay, there is no ballpark figure over here, but people have a different way of seeing into it, right? So once it goes into this range, you typically would try to use your data warehousing solution to store your data. But when it goes into a range where is a petabytes of a data, you start storing in your data you call that data as a big data, and you start storing into a solution which is a big data, right? And that is where we go to Hadoop. Okay. Yeah, Thomas. So that is one of the so Thomas' question is if data size in PB. Okay. So I answered your question, Thomas. Right. So for the sake of everyone, Thomas was asking if it is in a petabyte, do we call is a big data, right? So I said yes, this is one of the criteria, okay? Because we are talking about three characteristics. I'm still we are still talking about the first characteristics, okay? And that basically terms that data as a big data, okay? So guys, I wanted to, I think we are at the end of the session. I introduce you to the big data. Okay, I introduce you to the data warehousing concepts. I introduce you to the certain concepts on OLTP, data warehouse, and big data. We will dwell deep into the next class, and we will be focusing upon some challenges what we were having when we were working with a data warehouse. Okay, and I will start showing you the cluster from the next session or from the next to next session. Okay, and I hope everyone have a cluster available with you. You can provide me a feedback. We still have 1 minute left. uh, uh, Whether my speed is good, I'm audible, or anything. Okay. Okay. So Rajan, have you taken our course? Okay, fine. So just drop in a mail to Thakur and CC the other support ID which I have given, and we'll be able to provide you. Okay. Any feedback, guys, and we can close on this session. Or any questions? Okay. So we'll stop on this session, and we will meet tomorrow same time 7:30, and hope to see you all there. Thank you, guys.